Hello, welcome to Matters of DeCorum. I'm Scott Corum. This is what matters to me. Last vlog of the year 2021, and I could spend this time on reflection and looking at my past and what's coming up in the future. And this is already down a little ways, so you can see I've tried to do that a few times. And let's not do that. I might start the new year with something more introspective, but I've gotten some very good comments and some requests in my past couple of videos, and I thought I would tackle a couple of those today. Thank you for all of your comments. Thank you for your suggestions and your questions, and just keep those coming. Those actually do fuel my process, and I do enjoy the interactions. From Blackstone Plainview, love the video with your thoughts about Gary Gygax. Thank you very much for your comment. And I did reply that I didn't think I'd be able to do that without a certain amount of thought and preparation. But what you asked for was my thoughts, not my research on Gary Gygax. Gary Gygax is often referred to as the father of modern role-playing. He is credited with the writing of earlier editions of Dungeons & Dragons, the first edition, second advanced, and those were my second entrance into role-playing games. And my first was, my dad bought me a box set of Traveler, but I never had anyone around me who wanted to play that with me. And I was too young to really understand how it operated at the time. But the first kid sitting next to me in high school, hey, Pat, who put together first next to me alphabetically in homeroom, had just moved in from out of state, was looking to put together a D&D game. And I was the first guy he asked because first day of high school, homeroom, alphabetical. And the group that grew out of that playing second edition AD&D, still keep Facebook touch with most of those guys, the ones who are still with us. And that was the beginning of amazing things in my life. So those rules and that setting and that tool for engaging in shared imagination and combined storytelling, I cannot thank Gary Gygax and his memory enough for that advancement. I don't like how second edition D&D, which was my real entrant, I had a first edition book because of course I did, but I never really was able to get that into it. Second edition had more pictures, and at the age I was getting into it, that helped. The origins of Dungeons and Dragons are taking a war game and adding rules to individual characters so that you could play them as more than just a figure on a field, but could imagine the character behind them. And that was amazing, but you could still taste the war game in those early editions. It hadn't completely divorced itself from that tabletop grid and the lead and the paint. I like me Theater of the Imagination. But the rules were serviceable and the settings were imaginative and spanning and borrowed from a lot of different fantasy. There's a lot of Tolkien, but not just Tolkien. There was Feist, there was Lieber. So many amazing influences went into that and combined them all into one place so that you could see things that were recognizable and things that had never existed before and create things that had never existed before. So amazing. Not that everything Gary Gygax did was ideal. years later, I had an opportunity. I had enough money in my pocket for one product from the bookstore at the mall. I was away on a trip, uh, and uh, there were two packages in front of me. First edition, the only edition at the time, BattleTech, giant robots, a game about giant robots. And I recognized some of those images on the front and back of the box because they had completely ignored a lot of copyright when they put that first edition together, but still giant robots. Yes, but next to that, a boxed set of Gary Gygax's Cyborg Commando. And I love me some giant robots, but oh, I love me some cyborgs. And so, you know what? The choice, I agonized for a while, asked my girlfriend at the time, hi, Lisa, how that went, what I should get, and she helped me think about it. And I bought the box set, Cyborg Commando, because wow, Gary Gygax writing a game with cyborgs and aliens, and yes. And I read that, both books, beginners and advanced, cover to cover, on the way home from Columbia, Missouri. And I should have bought BattleTech. There are the seeds of interesting gaming in Cyborg Commando, but it's not a good book. It's not a good book. And to be fair, Gary Gygax was pushed to generate a lot of material and did not get to stay with the company that he founded, TSR, and that has caused all manner of grief and dissent over the years. But I prefer to remember the things that he is known for having done well. There's a fantasy murder mystery he wrote called Anubis. I really need to read that. I have a copy on my shelf behind me, and I want to see, because his settings and his descriptives and even some of the snippets of dialogue that you caught in the RPG material that he wrote was more than competent. It was rather good. And if you look at the Forgotten Realms and the basis of that, yeah, Gygax did not alone create D&D. There's other names out there that should be likewise credited to Dave Arneson and others, but I think Mr. Gygax served the community and society well with the contributions that he did make, and for which I'm always going to be very grateful. So I hope that answers your question. And then, same video, my last one. Ico Skater asks, can you do a discussion about one-off sessions? What are some rules you follow, and how do you go making sure that a single storyline makes an impact, but only being one short session? Many thanks. Thank you very much for that question. That's actually a really good one. Sometimes you don't get the whole group together. Sometimes you've only got one or two people. And I've been the recipient of that being handled very well, and I've been the recipient of that being handled very badly. You can do amazing things in a one-off session. You can wreck your game and destroy the unity of the group with the one-off session if you don't do it right. And I've talked about player trust. The player trusting the game master and the game master trusting the player being essential for good role playing and being able to engage in some ripping and breaking away from tradition in how things get done. And that is never more important than it is when you're talking about one-off sessions. Ideally, if I was going to have a game where one-off sessions were going to be a thing, where maybe I knew that everyone was going to be available at different times and they still wanted to get some stuff done, but we weren't going to be able to all get together. Ideally, that would run between session 0 and session 1 of a new campaign, where I would have the time to sit down as a game master and run a one-off session individually for every player involved. So uh, it would give that player, the character that they're playing, a little bit more sense of depth, a little more sense of history. They would be um, building the world and creating new NPCs and new connections before everyone got together. And so you have all these enhanced characters and these enhanced stories, and you've already started doing your world building and setting up your plots for further down the line, creating NPCs that they can interact with, and then other people can interact with, and then that NPC becomes a little more real. Or if you run these things so that they're sequential, so this player ran into NPC A and this player ran into NPC A. When you get to the game and NPC A shows up and two people go, oh, hey, it's them. And they look at each other and you know them. And suddenly you've built this little community that they already have in common. So that would be my best ideal for doing this. Because you're absolutely right in the way you ask your question. You're going to change the setting. You're going to change the game when you run a one-off. And if you've got one player who wants to, hey, can we have some extra time? I want to do some extra stuff with my character. After that first session, my answer is usually no, because that character doesn't exist in a vacuum. That character exists in a world that has the other player characters in it. And you don't want that one player to start making changes to the game world and to the game, to the storylines, that the other players are not only unaware of, but maybe should have had a part in. It's like, well, I went and did this thing, but I do that thing. Yeah, but I went and did this thing and I changed all this stuff. I was going to go do some stuff with that. Yeah, but I got it taken care of. And that kind of oversteps. That makes the game a little bit less real for everyone else. If someone can go and start doing all their stuff. I mean, I've had players who try to do the entire adventure on their own in the middle of a group while we're all sitting together, and I've had to ask them to stop because there's other people in the room. And it's not that different after the game has started if someone wants to do that. Can I go run an adventure of my own? No. I really want to play this character more. I can appreciate that. I'm really happy you're enjoying the game that much. No. That is a good time to encourage them to create a little fiction, write a little backstory, maybe. Write some backstory for that character. Give me something that the character did in the past that isn't affecting the current game situation. That's a good use of that kind of energy. But outside of that, or yeah, you come to a point in a campaign where the characters are naturally going to go their own separate ways for a little while, and maybe you run individual characters there. You give everyone the chance to do this. You give everyone a chance. Well, you know what? Let's do a few one-offs, and then we'll go back together and see how things went. And you have to be careful with those because they've got established history. They've got established stuff. They all know things in the world they're going to want to interact with, and they can't interact with things that are common to one another. I can't run character 1 through a scenario involving NPC A, and then involve NPC A in character 2's story, unless I'm making sure these are very sequential, because NPC A might not be there for character 2's story. Or changes may have been made to NPC A that character 2 is going to have to become unaware of, and it gets to be almost nightmarish how much you have to keep straight. With the understanding, you make sure everyone's got an understanding that, okay, I'm going to run one-offs for everyone. The order that I run these one-offs in is the order that the events are happening in the game world. So they can't be truly concurrent because you only have one set of worlds and events for them to interact with, and they're not interacting with them at the same time. I guess it's a complicated way of saying I don't mind one-offs used correctly, but when what a character does affects things that other characters should be involved in or have a part of, that becomes very sticky very quickly, and is going to run the risk of negatively impacting people's appreciation of the game. Couple times, I have shown up to a game session after a week between sessions, game one day, say bye everyone, show up to the next one, to be informed, oh, you're going to have to change your character. We ran a one-off. I ran a one-off with him, and yeah, your character kind of got thrown under the bus and isn't going to be welcome in the group anymore, so you need to make a new character. More than once. Because of the same player's desire for a one-off. Which I perceived, perhaps incorrectly, perhaps correctly, as getting backstabbed between sessions by someone who was hijacking the game for a session. And the game masters did not see it that way. Two different game masters, same player. The game masters didn't see it that way. Oh, they wanted to have a little more game, so we had a little more game, and well, stuff happened. Now you need to make a new character. And that wasn't good for me. In one case, it caused me to leave the game. In another case, it ended a friendship for a while. Because it was difficult not to perceive that as a backstab. So I'm going to have perhaps an overly negative view of the one-off. But the one-off is a good tool. The one-off is a good tool for doing a lot of stuff, for character building and for history building and doing a certain amount of world building. But you got to apply it correctly, and you need to make absolutely sure that if you trust the player, if you trust the players involved implicitly not to do negative things to other characters or other character situations, not to overstep into what another character should have been involved in, or not to negatively impact a player's enjoyment, another player's enjoyment of the game. If you have that level of trust, absolutely. That is a level of trust I'm not going to have anytime soon. I'd rather just not do the one-off personally. Not that I don't trust my players. I trust the players I have at the moment an awful lot. I just don't trust one-shots because they have to be handled in my opinion, very carefully, very delicately. And it's a bit of a dance to make sure that they're not impacting everyone else. One shot in a vacuum, one shots where, you've got some time and a set of rules and you want to test the game out and it's you and one other person. You want to just do something to see how this thing goes. Absolutely. All the time. All day, every day. That sounds like a great way to spend a few days at the friendly local gaming store or online with someone just trying stuff out. That's amazing. And, that can grow into something even better. Get another person or two involved, maybe start over fresh. So one person doesn't have more history than the other person. Yeah, you go for it. But breaking out of an established campaign to, well, we're going to go do a side mission, you and me. Not unless everyone gets to do one and not unless you keep them absolutely off to the side. This isn't going to impact the rest of the group. You're going to go off and do this thing over here that needs to get done. Maybe something extra gets done. Do you reward that person more? Does everyone else come back to find that one person has a level higher than everyone else? That gets sticky again. As you can see, I've got problems with one-offs. Issues. I've got issues. I've got trust issues with one-offs. One reason why it's such a good question. In general, personally. Yeah. I'm trying to find the positive spin on this because I really like to be positive. But as you can tell, my experiences with the process just haven't been good. And I can see it being used well in a couple of situations. But man, the risks that you run doing one-offs in the middle of a campaign probably outweigh the benefits. I can see reasons why it could be good to do. I've had good one-offs run. I've seen people engage in good one-off behavior. I've seen this work to enhance a campaign, and in the ways I've mentioned. But I've had some games absolutely ruined for me because of that particular process in gaming. So, as a rule, at the beginning of the campaign or during a break with very special caveats, but mid-campaign, almost never. And I think I can stick to that. Well, thank you very much for the question. Thank you very much for all the questions, and please keep them coming. I hope to answer a lot more questions in 2022, and let's be careful out there. We're going into another fascinating year with wonderful situations out there to deal with, and a certain benefit to being able to sit back in my office and create imaginary problems to solve because they tend to be a lot more solvable than the real ones. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, give me a thumbs up. If you didn't enjoy the video, give me a thumbs down. Feedback is feedback. If you have questions you'd like to hear me answer, comments, your own experiences with these matters, do you do successful one-offs? What do you think about Gary Gygax? Please leave me a comment. I will love getting your comment. You'll love leaving me a comment. If you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, why not? My channel is awesome. Go ahead and hit the subscription button. If you do, you might want to also hit the notification bell so you're alerted when my videos become available. If you'd like to contribute to my channel in a more substantial manner, I invite you to hit me up my Patreon page, www.patreon.com/ScottCorum. Consider donating. Absolutely anything helps, allows me to make better videos more often. In the meantime, thank you very much for watching. I'm Scott Corum. This is what has mattered to me. I will see you next time on the next Matters of Decorum.